Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. The Florida Gators. So Florida, listen, we spent most of the Sunday reaction show. And if you missed it, by the way, we appreciate the support. We had a lot of you tune in on a Sunday afternoon on a holiday weekend to our week one reactions. Most podcast downloads we've had in months on Monday morning, thanks to you guys. So we appreciate your support. But we talked about Florida, and this isn't going to be a let's revisit a ton of the Miami game. And in the second quarter, this happened. In the third quarter, that happened, whatever. But Florida is not good. They were disappointing. We talked about it. It was a game where they needed to show out. And even if you lose, but it's a great game, even if it's a 27-24 final score and you lose on a last-second field goal, you have to give your fan base hope if you're Florida, because there hasn't been a lot of positives over the first 2 years of this Billy Napier regime. Unfortunately, the exact opposite happens. You don't only lose, you get embarrassed. It's ugly. Miami, who is also being coached by a third-year head coach, is just leaps and bounds more talented than you. And it was just nasty all around, okay? So it was bad. We talked about it. But Billy Napier certainly did himself no favors. Like everybody else, he has the Monday morning, Monday afternoon media availability where he kind of looks back on the previous week but starts to look ahead to the next opponent. Florida has Samford this weekend. You certainly hope they take care of business. But he was asked about what had to change after last week. Here is what he had to say.
And I think we got to get more, we got to become a more consistent team, and we have to execute better. And if we can focus on those things and not necessarily what some guy in his basement saying in, rural Central Florida on social media, then we got a chance to get better, right? So.
Not a good look, Billy Napier. Not a good look. Got a lot of thoughts on this. First of all, shout out to all the Florida fans that actually pointed this out to me. Not a lot of basements in rural Central Florida. Don't love you calling out the fans. But talk about not knowing a fan base. There's no basements in rural Central Florida because of the hurricanes and the rain. So people were making fun of Billy Napier for not even knowing what life in Florida is actually like. But let me just say this. Billy Napier has enough problems. Calling out the fans certainly didn't help. I think this is a terrible, terrible look for Billy Napier. Now, in terms of the whole situation, there's a couple things. First off, I don't believe you should ever be calling out your fans, okay? Because, listen, I get it. There's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs people all over the internet. I hear from them every day. You think I don't get told I suck every day? You think I don't get told that I need to do whatever, whatever. I'm not going to get into what I get told every day. But I get told it. I know your players get told it. I know you're in your mentions it isn't pretty. But you have to ignore it. But here's the other thing. The fans, let me even backtrack. I'm just not in favor of ever criticizing your fans. There is never an upside. It's all downside. And those crazy Florida fans, and when I say crazy, I mean that in a positive way, they're the ones that allow you to make $7 million a year to coach football, okay? Listen, you want to go make $40K a year and have no stress and have people not tweeting at you? Go coach high school football. Listen, no disrespect. I know Billy Napier's dad is a legendary high school football coach. But when you step into the SEC, you know what those expectations are. When you take the Florida job, you know what the expectations are. When you sign a contract that pays you $7 million a year and allows you to hire 742 support staff members, you know what those expectations are. And again, it's the fans that are helping support that crazy staff that you put together, NIL, and your salary alone. But here is where I have real issue with what Billy Napier said. The fans were not the problem on Saturday. As a matter of fact, the fans were awesome on Saturday. Now, listen, I'm not a fan, as I said, of ever criticizing the fan base, But like, I sort of get the Eli Drinkwitz a few weeks ago. Hey, I want to see this place filled. I know it's Murray State, but let's fill this place up. I'm not saying I think it's smart, but I get where he's saying, hey, come support your team. You know who didn't have a problem filling up the stadium and getting support on Saturday? It was the Florida Gators. I looked it up before the game. The get-in price to get the cheapest ticket in that stadium, it's like $175. So you think about a family of four, and I'm not trying to do the whole cliche family, but think about it. But you bring four people to that stadium. We're talking minimum just in tickets, $600-700. Then you're talking parking, tailgate, gas, food, grill, charcoal, whatever you're doing. Hopefully you brought some Collie Puffs with you for your tailgate. But the point is that beer, whatever. Then you get to the stadium. It's 1,000 degrees. You're buying bottles of water. The fans were not the problem. The fans were actually awesome. You had 90,000 people, the vast majority wearing blue, yelling and screaming, fired up, ready to go. And if they weren't fired up, Tim Tebow fired them up, Javon Curse fired them up. Like, the fans were actually awesome. And so to call them out, to somehow say that they are the problem in this situation, no, Billy Napier, your lousy football team is the problem. The team that you have put together with your players on the same time frame as Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal got the same job that you got the job the same time you did. Mario Cristobal players are better. They were more prepared. By the way, it wasn't the fans' fault that your players kept committing dumb penalties late in drives that kept people on the field. Not the fans' fault that guys are hitting the quarterback after he's gotten rid of the ball. Not your fans' fault that your defensive line is getting pushed 8 yards in the backfield when Miami wants to run the football. So to me, it is such a bad look. And I do think, I hate to say it, I'm not rooting against Billy Napier. If you've been listening to this show, there's been a lot of negativity with Florida, but it's because it's a negative state of mind right now. I'm not rooting against him. You know how good it is for my business if Florida's really good? Are you kidding me? Florida's got one of the biggest fan bases in the country, as we're learning right now. And so this idea that, like, I don't want Billy Napier or Florida to be fired, but I'm also not going to let him get away with calling out his fans. I just thought it was a bad look. And it was interesting because when I shared the video on my social media feed at Aaron_Torres, a lot of, you know who was the most vocal about this besides Florida fans? It was Tennessee fans that said, hey, when things got bad with Butch Jones, we used to start hearing stuff like this. It was other fan bases that were like, oh, I have seen this before. It never ends well. And to me, that's the theme of this conversation. Don't call out your fans. It's not going to end well. They support you. You need them in your corner. Now we'll see what happens going forward. You got to beat Stanford this weekend. And then you got to beat Texas A&M. And like, I'm actually curious what that fan base, especially after what Billy Napier said on Monday, how they respond against Texas A&M. I credit all the people that spent all that money to come to the stadium, but that was a bad look for Billy Napier. I don't think that's acceptable. I just don't. And I'm not a high horse guy. I'm not perfect. I say dumb stuff all the time, but criticism is part of the job. I'm lucky enough to have this mic and a platform and a platform where maybe a couple people a day care about what I have to say, but I got to deal with the consequences of not everybody's going to agree with me. Billy Napier, you got the privilege of coaching football, making $7 million a year in the toughest conference in college football. You got to take the good with the bad. You got to avoid the noise on social media, and you cannot criticize your fans.